So if you want the slide deck, it is there, so you can click on the QR code. Also, after this presentation is over, Dr. Washington is going to send everyone a link to the slides so that you all can access the slides easily. So thank you so much for being here, and just a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming to this mini class. I'm Dr. Chris Wildermuth. I am, let's see, what can I tell you? I'm an associate professor here at Barry University, and I'm the director of the Bachelor of Science in Organizational Leadership. The Bachelor of Science in Organizational Leadership is an adult completion program. So it is a program designed for people who have probably gone on their careers and done absolutely fine, but never gotten to finish their degree. So then they come with us here at Barry to finish their degree. And then we also have at Barry other leadership programs, and I have them here. There are certificates in leadership and human resources. There's a Master of Science in Leadership and Innovation that a lot of our students go on to take, a Master of Science in Human Resource Development, where I also teach, and a doctorate in organizational leadership. And if anybody is interested in any of that, you can go to the QR code and go straight to our leadership programs page. And also, I'm sure Dr. Washington will be happy to send you all some information on that as well. And with that, I wanted to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and ask Dr. Washington to introduce himself.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Hey, I'm Dr. Washington, and I am the Regional Recruitment Manager for Barry University that does recruitment pretty much all of Florida and through the Caribbean and some other areas around the world. But hey, I'm glad to have you here. And then if you're interested in knowing what other programs that we have to offer here at Barry, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And then I'm going to send you email of the slide deck after Dr. Wildermuth is done with her presentation, and that will also have some other information on it as well. Chris, it's yours.
Okay, thank you. And let me share my screen again. And this way I know to just share the exact screen, because otherwise the system has a heart attack for some reasons unknown to me. Okay, so some housekeeping items. We are recording the session for the folks who weren't able to attend, so just so that you know. And this session is worth half 0.5 professional development, credits for SHRM. But as per SHRM requirements, I can only share those credits at the end of the session. And also, I'm sure Dr. Washington can send the addressed or the number of that credit at the end of the presentation. So just so that you know what is happening. Okay, so I'm going to go straight in. And before we start, you should be seeing online my question. As if you clicked on that link that I gave you, you should be answering the question, what is engagement? And I wouldn't worry about the official definition of engagement. Just think about what engagement means to you. And I'm going to show some of the responses that you're entering right now. I don't know how many people are there. There should be 4 people entering responses right now. And Walter, can you see the link for people to get into Pear Deck? Or do you want me to put it on the chat again?
Can you put it in the chat again?
I'm having a hard time finding the chat here.
Oh, okay, I see it. I see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what I love about this Pear Deck system, by the way, which is totally free, I'm like the technology queen and I love new technology. So what I love about Pear Deck, it's just like many of these survey tools, I suppose. And what is nice is that whatever you all are entering right now is completely anonymous. So that's kind of a nice way for us to collect information. So one person said having a relationship with employees and managers that builds the workplace, and being involved and interested. If at any time you can't get into Pear Deck for any reason, but you would like to participate in the conversation and you want to enter something just in the chat box, please do so. And Dr. Washington can keep an eye on that and let me know if there's anything in there. Okay, behind the responses and go on. So let me give you kind of the official definition, I suppose. Engagement basically means a connection. It's a connection between the person and the job. It's a very strong connection. And that comes by from the seminal article on engagement by William Kahn. It's called Psychological Conditions of Engagement at Work. It's not a new article. It's a 1990 article, but pretty much anything that you read on engagement is going to cite Dr. Kahn. I believe he is, or he was at the time, a professor at Boston College or something along those lines. Now, what is not engagement, and it's very often confused with engagement? First, people confuse engagement with work ethic. Engagement is not work ethic. Somebody can be very ethical about their work and very judicious and conscientious about the work they do and not be engaged. It's not job satisfaction. In fact, you could be satisfied with your job. Maybe you make a great salary. Maybe you make amazing benefits. Maybe even you have friends at the job, but you could still be disengaged. And there could be various reasons for that. And it's also not success or competence. Once again, somebody could be competent and not engaged. I suppose it's also possible for somebody to be not competent and engaged. So those two things are not necessary. They are connected, they are correlated, but it doesn't mean the same thing. So my next question to you all, and this is another one in which you can answer on Pear Deck, or if you prefer, you can just enter it on the chat system. And that is, what makes you feel engaged? So if you think about engagement and you think of yourself, what conditions make you feel engaged? And I'll give you some time to answer the questions, and I'll go here to the responses. So one participant said, knowing what is expected at work, knowing what your expectations are. So I suppose clarity. And indeed, research does support that clarity does matter to engagement. When I'm recognized for my contributions, I could give a hug to the person who said that, because remember that it is it's the one thing that can help the most in terms of building engagement is precisely the right type of recognition at work. A manager that is helpful, and helpfulness does matter because resources at work do matter. And we're going to go through some of those conditions in a moment. Interactions, positive affirmation, working together. Yes, teamwork does, like collaborative feelings and being comfortable at work. In fact, one of the most common or well-known engagement assessments, which is the Gallup Q12, does have a question about whether you have a friend at work. When my voice is heard, look at that, what a beautiful statement. Let's see, is there anything in the chats that I missed, Dr. Washington?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right. So here are the official conditions that lead to engagement. And I just wanted to preface this by saying that I'm going to go through the psychological conditions that are connected to engagement, or antecedents of engagement, if you will, and also the symptoms of engagement, or what engagement actually looks like. And what I'm talking about is what predicts engagement or what causes engagement. First one is meaningfulness. So the person who said, hey, being recognized really helped. Meaningfulness is a feeling of being valued and valuable. It's a feeling that what you're doing matters. And there are several conditions that relate to that. One of which is recognition, but it needs to be recognition that is tied to the value that you bring to work. So that kind of recognition in which everybody under the sun is going to earn the same crazy watch when you complete 25 years, that's not what I'm talking about. And by the way, when I say recognition, it doesn't have to be something that you spend an arm and a leg on. It can be simply making sure that the employee understands this is why you matter. This is why you're important to us. This is why the work that you're doing is important. And by the way, on a big scheme, this is why what we're doing as an organization matters. People want to go home at night and feel that what they did is important. So meaningfulness is the most important predictor of engagement. And that's not only Dr. Kuhn's research like 2 centuries ago, but it's also other research studies, important research studies that were done after that. The second condition is psychological safety. So when you all said, feeling like you have friends at work and feeling like connected and having a collaborative environment, that gives you the permission to be yourself. So when you feel safe at work, then you can present yourself as you really are at work, and you don't need to spend any energy pretending to be someone else or masking. Safety is extremely important because of that word energy. When I come back to the symptoms of engagement and I come up with energy, remember that I said that safety matters to give you the time, the opportunity to use your energy in your work and not spend your energy being upset or concerned or hiding part of who you are. And finally, the person who said, hey, having clarity, having a helpful manager, that has to do with availability of resources. So when people feel that they have what they need to do their work well, and that they have what they need to achieve the goals that were set up that are important to the organization and that are important to them, then they are more engaged. But what I mean by availability of resources, by the way, is not only physical resources, it's also emotional resources. Remember that word that I used, energy? If you're spending your energy being upset or depressed or nervous, or you're really worried about stuff that is happening at home, then you don't have any resources left at work. So do you have emotional resources and physical resources to be successful? That predicts engagement. So far, I have given you 3 conditions that predict engagement, and they are, and I think I have it in my next slide, meaningfulness, safety, and availability of resources. And now I have like a quick little survey here, and I'm asking you, which is the most important to you? Which one matters the most? And let's see what responses we have. So far, only 1 person responded. Once again, if you prefer, you can enter your response on the chat. But if you enter it here, it's completely anonymous. So that's one of the advantages of doing it that way. Okay. And so far, we have 3 people who said meaningfulness and 1 person who said safety, which, by the way, even though that's a very, very small sample, it matches the research I have done in which meaningfulness was the most important component, followed by safety. Availability of resources really is really the 3rd component. So the things that sometimes we spend a lot of time worrying about, like do people have the right equipment, or do they have the right computers or whatever, that doesn't really matter, but or doesn't matter as much. But getting help and support from the manager and getting clarity from the manager, that does matter. Okay, now, so far, we've been talking about causes of engagement. So one metaphor that I like to use is if we're talking about, let's say that you're exploring, I don't know, heart attacks. You want to know what causes the heart attacks, and then you want to know what heart attacks look like. So now that we've seen what is it that causes or predicts engagement, let's take a look at what engagement looks like. So remember the word energy? So people who are engaged, they have the physical and the mental energy to do their job. So they are not exhausted at the end of the day. They're not, I mean, I don't know, it depends on how many hours you worked, I suppose, but they're not dead towards the end of the day. The second component is focus, and that is when you are at work, you are concentrating in what you're doing. You're not worried about what's happening elsewhere. You're not concerned about conflict. You're not concerned about non-work things. You're focused on the work things, and you're not distracted. And then the third thing is you actually are passionate not only about what you do, but where you do it. And that's one thing that we're going to be briefly talking about soon, is that it's possible for you to be engaged with what you do, but not engaged where you do it, which is, of course, very dangerous for organizations because you could potentially lose your best people. You can imagine somebody who is deeply connected, who they are is deeply connected to what they do. They are really energized by what they do. When they stop to do it, they're really focused and they're passionate about what they do, but they're not passionate about their place of work. They are not proud of it. Their values don't match the organization. There's something going on in there that is disengaging them from that place of work. Usually what happens with those people is they, go do that work that engages them elsewhere. So this is like, these mini classes are super, super quick. But for starters, I wanted to see if from the group, I could have some general recommendations, and then I'll offer mine. So from your experience, from what you do, what do you think works the best to enhance engagement at work? And this time, I think I totally forgot to I forgot to create a question, so I'm going to ask people to put it in the chat, and maybe Dr. Washington can tell me what's coming up in the chat. So what have you seen in your organization done or in your career that really helps build engagement?
In a strong, authentic culture.
Strong, authentic culture. Authenticity does matter to engagement, in part because a connection between the person's values and the organizational values really matters.
Having one-on-one with employees to see what is important to them and how you can incorporate that into their day-to-day, and build trust is another one.
Yes, and in some research that I did on engagement in the past, that building trust, not only building trust with the manager or with the leader, but building trust among each other in the team. A lot of the the lack of trust among team members, not only it becomes extremely inefficient because everybody is, watching their backs and redoing what they asked somebody to do, but it also takes energy away from people, which means it reduces engagement. So team trust, trust in the leader, and then trust in the organization, and then feeling trusted. Trust is an important work over here. Let me share with you all some other general recommendations that I could offer. The first is what I was saying to you all before. A person can be engaged with what they do, but disengaged where they do it, which is something that good engagement assessments are going to measure both. They are going to measure whether people are engaged with the job, but they're also going to measure items such as pride. Do you have pride in your organization? Do you feel connected to your organization? Do you tell other people to come to your organization? Those kinds of questions are measuring the engagement in the organization. Questions such as, are you energized by what you do? Do you see yourself as connected to what you do? Those would be connected to personal engagement. And both of those should be measured. Measure predictors and symptoms. One thing that often concerns me when I look at assessments of engagement in general, and I've seen a lot of them, is that oftentimes it's kind of like measuring heart attack by only looking at the heart attack, or measuring heart attack by the amount of cholesterol that somebody has. It's possible for you to have high cholesterol and never have a heart attack, right? And vice versa. I suppose I'm not a doctor, so I'm just coming up with some crazy metaphor here. But the idea is that you should be measuring meaningfulness and safety and availability and leader behaviors that lead to engagement, because if nothing else, those things are actionable. If you know that the leaders are not sitting down with their employees and having conversations to help with trust building, if you know that your leaders are not being helpful or not giving clear directions, that people are not feeling safe, then these are things that the organization can work on. On the other hand, you also want to know, regardless of those predictors, you want to know if people are energized or exhausted. For example, if people are overworked and they're exhausted and they don't have the resources to do their work, it doesn't matter that their leader is really good and sits down with them and builds trust. So you do want to look at your engagement assessments, and you want to measure both. And by the way, I am not recommending any assessment whatsoever. I don't have an assessment on engagement. I have zero interest in engagement assessments. All I'm saying is, in general, when you look at an engagement assessment, you want to take a look at the questions and the constructs that are being measured, and you want to make sure that all those items are being taken care of. The other thing I wanted to say in terms of assessments, even though I don't have a slide to that, is that you have the popular consulting proprietary assessments that, like highly respected, very researched ones like the Q12. But you also have a number of highly respected academic assessments that are used in academic research. Often organizational life and higher education don't kind of connect for some reason. It's not that you can use those academic assessments without paying the copyrights or whatever to whoever created them. It's that they're usually much cheaper and equally sound. So that's something for you to keep in mind if budget is an issue when you're measuring engagement. And finally, I think this is my last recommendation here, and then I'm going to give you the link and the SHRM number and all that kind of stuff. But this is my last and important recommendation. If you can only do one thing, then look at your recognition processes at your organization. Pay attention to them. Make sure that those recognition processes are not general things that everybody's going to getting the same thing, that they are giving employees the message: here is why you're valuable, here is why we value you, here is why we trust you, here's why you matter. Because meaningfulness is the most important predictor of engagement, and recognition is the most important predictor of meaningfulness. So if you could only do one thing, take a look at your recognition. And one thing, by the way, that recognition processes that drive me absolutely crazy is when employees have to nominate themselves and do a lot of work to get the recognition. If people are having to do that much work for the recognition, what you're measuring is not people's value and feeling valued at work. What you're measuring is whether people are willing to go through all that process, which is really not what you want to do. Okay, so man, those mini classes go fast. So once again, if you need information on either on the Barry programs, or frankly, if you have any question on engagement or anything that I didn't cover that you would like to go through, or you're like, oh my gosh, what was that article she talked about by Dr. William Kahn? Just write me. It's cwildermuth@barry.edu, and I will be very happy to answer. And hopefully, Dr. Washington, if you could put my email also in the email that you send everyone, that would be great. Yes. And if you could please fill out the program evaluation, because that's a requirement by SHRM. They ask us to please evaluate our program so that we can collect data and so that we can continuously improve, right? Because I do these things as an outreach to the community and to help our community members and raise the name of Barry University. Of course, I'm proud of our university. So, but it's important that we continuously improve them. So, I'm going to end the session without naming, I suppose. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm not in a hurry. I was just trying to finish on time. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. And Dr. Washington, do we have a list of the people who actually attended so that we can send them the yes. Link? Because we can send the link to everybody. Not the link, yes. But yeah, you understand what I'm saying, the SHRM number.
Yes, I have them identified, all the people who attended today.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for me? All right. So I guess not. So if anybody has any questions that you prefer not to ask in a public forum like this one, and you would like to send me an email, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great end of your day. And I hope to see you in our next mini class, which is going to be on intercultural relations in November, right? It's in November, Dr. Washington?
Yes, ma'am.
It's when is it? It's November.
Should
I'm
be
going
like
here to.
November 14th, 12th or 14th.
It is intercultural development. What works? It's actually November 2nd, November the 2nd at 5 p.m. And here is the link for you to sign up if you would like to come. So that's the next one in November the 2nd. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day.